everyone, welcome back. Let's simplify take one concept at a time. Today's topic is API. So let's dive in. So as we all know, API application programming interface is a set of rules and specification that allows one software system to interact with another over a network. As we know, there are multiple software systems they needs to communicate between them. For that, there is a concept called API, Application Programming Interface. In backend development, an API usually means a set of HTTP endpoints that follow defined request response structure, uses standard HTTP methods, get, post, put, delete. These are the methods of HTTP. Exchange data typically in JSON format follow a specific architecture like REST. An API acts as an abstraction layer between client and server. Technical breakdown. Suppose when we say post API users, then that API defines endpoint URL, API users, HTTP method post, request body format JSON, like the method will follow post. Post is used to add the data to the database. Then request body format JSON, like data is going to transfer using the JSON format, JavaScript object notation. Status code 200, 201, 400, 404, 500. So API is just not the URL you can see. So this is not just the URL. It contains the information regarding its endpoint, method, header, request body, response body, their status code. API status code are 200, 201, 400, 404, 500. So let's just understand in the Spring Boot context. So this is the code. You can just go through this post mapping. So REST controller exposes REST APIs. Post mapping defines HTTP method. Request body bind JSON to Java object. Response entity control HTTP response. So Spring initially converts JSON into Java object using Jackson. Then, as we know, it calls controller method, then further converts Java object into JSON, send HTTP response as usual. So let's just understand with the real world example. Think of a payment gateway like Razorpay. When your front end calls post and create order, then it sends amount, currency, user ID. Backend processes it and returns order ID, payment status. Here, frontend doesn't know database structure, business logic, payment provider integration. So, controller accesses layer, security boundary, contract definition. So, when a user do the payment, user doesn't know like how the database structure is built, how the business logic is written, payment provider integration. So you can answer to the interviewer simply an API is a contract that defines API is a contract that defines how two software systems communicate with each other. In a backend system, APIs are typically exposed as a HTTP endpoint that accept request and return structured response, usually in JSON format. An API defines the an API defines the URL HTTP method. So through API you can understand HTTP method, request body format, headers, and response structure along with status code. So in Spring Boot, we create API using annotations like REST controller, request mapping, Spring handles request mapping, object conversion, response, serialization automatically. APIs provide abstraction, security, control access to backend service without exposing internal implementation details. Suppose interviewer asks you, why do we need API? So you can simply say to enable the communication between front end and back end. It's a very generic answer. Further also you can answer like to allow integration between different systems. So first would be the to enable the communication between front end and back end, to allow integration between different systems, to provide control and secure access to backend logic, to make the system modular and scalable. Suppose if also you want to add something extra, you can answer like an API acts as an interface layer that decouples client side concerns from server side implementation, enabling losing coupling and system interoperability. So it just so high level, ignore that part. Basically, API makes the communication between front end and back end. It also allows integration between different software systems. So further, there is a question, what are the HTTP status code? HTTP status code are three-digit numbers written by the server in response to a client request. So whenever client sends the request, a three-digit number gets written by the server in response to the client request. They tell the client whether the request was successful, failed, redirected, or server had an error. So through these three-digit number, you can get the idea like whether the request sent by the client is successful, fail, or redirected. Suppose HTTP 200 OK. 200 means 200 status code is means OK message. So now the interviewer will ask you, why do we need status codes? Okay. So basically, first you should know what is HTTP status code. HTTP status code is basically a three-digit number written by the server in response to the client request. Like, okay, so without status code, client won't know like the request sent by the client user was successful, data found or not, user unauthorized, server crash. So it actually helps to the client to figure out the things, to know what's going on, where the things went wrong. So they help in proper front end handling, most importantly, proper front end handling. If the client is sending the request from the front end and you're not getting the proper response from the back end, then you should have the basic idea like where the things are going wrong. So that status code gives you the clarity whether the request was sent successfully or not, then data found or not, or either user is unauthorized or server is crashed. So it actually gives you the proper response, and it also help to error debugging. If you have a clarity like where the things were wrong, like either user is unauthorized or server crash, so that according to that you can figure out the thing and find the solution. Standard communication, REST APIs based practices. So status code are the part of HTTP protocol standard. So there are multiple status codes and their meaning is also different. So status codes are divided into five categories. First, informational. The status code which starts from 1, so it could be 100, 101, it is informational. If it is from the 2, it is success, it shows success. If it is start from the redirect 3, it shows the redirection. If the status code starts from 4, like 404 or 400, it shows the client error. Like error is on the client side. 5xx server error. Now let's just understand the important one, because mainly important status codes you can see while you are debugging or sending the request from the client, or whenever you click on the console button. So you can frequently see 200 OK. If you get the response 200, that means request is successfully fetched. Get request success, update success. You can understand like user data fetch successfully. If the status HTTP status code is 201, new resource created uses post request success. Example, new user registered. So generally 200 is used for the get request success, like you get the data for what you are looking. There are multiple methods in the HTTP: get, put, post, delete. So get means for retrieving the data, and 200 status code means you have successfully retrieved the data. If you are getting 201, that means you are sending the post request and you have successfully added the new data in the database. If it's 204, that means no content. Request successful but no response body. Like you delete success. If the status code starts from the 3, it generally reflects the redirection. So if it is 301, move permanently, URL permanently change. 302, found temporary redirect, mostly used in web apps, less in REST APIs. Okay. So mostly the request starts from 2, like 200, 201 are commonly asked in the interviews. 200, 201. So 200 is used for the GET request to retrieve the data from the database or user data fetch successfully. 201 is used for post requests, like to add the data in the database. Then there is a next 4xx client errors, means client made mistake. So there is a issue from the client side. 400, bad request, invalid input, missing required field. Suppose you have suppose client sends something and you get the request call 4001 400, that means it's a bad request, invalid input, you are missing something in the field which is required to get the response. So next is 101, that is unauthorized. As you know, authentication and authorization, like to access the data you're not authorized, you don't have authorization to access the specific data, like user not authorized authenticated. Example, JWT token missing. Suppose token is missing, then how will client make sure you are the right person to whom I can give the access? So unauthorized 401, and 400 means bad request, like you are missing some data so that you can't get the response. Next is 403, forbidden. User authenticated but not allowed. Example, normal user accessing the admin API. So you have multiple times seen the role based access control, like when you are login using the user or generally user, then you redirected to the different page. But when you are login as an admin, then you redirected to the dashboard of that application. And if you are user and you are trying to access the thing of admin, then you will get the 403 forbidden error, like user authenticated but not allowed, like you are not allowed to access that part of the data or application. So like normal user is trying to access the admin API, So it will give you the 403 forbidden error. And 404 not found. Resources not found. You are trying to access the thing which is not actually present in the database. So resource not found. So generally you have to remember 2 3 HTTP status code. 200, that means okay. Request send request successfully. It generally used to get HTTP method to retrieve the data or to fetch the data successfully. 201 is generally used to add the data in the database, like for the method post. You will get the 201 when you successfully added the data. 3 redirection is not that much important, and you will not be seeing this status code frequently. So next is starting from the 4 client errors. Mean client made a mistake. So 400 bad request, invalid input, you are missing something. Next 401 unauthorized, like user is not authenticate to access this part. Next is 403 forbidden, user authenticated but not allowed. If normal trying to access the admin API, so it is not going to give you the access. And 404 simply not found, resource not found. And 500 you will see unexpected server error, like it's where server crash or something wrong happen, means backend problems purely. So example would be null pointer exception, database crash. And 403, it is simply server temporarily down. So you can simply remember the status code starting from 200, 200, which is used for get, 201 for the post, then 400, it is for generally bad request, you are missing something. 401 is unauthorized, like JWT token is missing and you are trying to access the data. Then 40, after 400, 401, there is a 403 which is forbidden, user authenticated but not allowed. Then 404 not found. 500 is all related to internal server error. So you can remember this, like generally 200 are success code, 400 are client side error, and there are also types of client side error. 400 bad request, missing data. 401 unauthorized, you don't have access, like you are not authenticated. 403 forbidden, user authenticated but not allowed. 404 not found, resource not found. And 500 are generally server errors. So simply 500 is internal server error, like there is a null pointer exception, database crashes. Then next is 503, service unavailable, server temporarily shuts down. So these are the status code, HTTP status code you will face in real world while solving problems or seeing whenever you click on F12 network tab. So if you want to answer to the interviewer, you can simply answer like HTTP status code are standardized 3-digit response code. So, HTTP status code is a standardized 3-digit response code written by the server to indicate the result of client request. As you can see, for client error means client made a mistake. Okay, so 200s are generally success. 200 is for get, 201 is for post, then 400, the status code starting from the code are generally client errors, means client made a mistake, so it can be bad request, missing required fields. Then 401 unauthorized, it is not authenticated. 404 user is authenticated but not allowed. 404 is a bad request. So it just basically a three-digit number which is returned by the server to indicate the result of client request. So HTTP status codes are standardized three-digit response code written by the server to indicate the result of client request. They are part of HTTP protocol and help the client understand. So as you can answer why status codes are important. So basically they are HTTP protocols and they help client understand whether the request was successful, failed due to client error or failed due to server error. So it can be either successful or failed due to client error as we have seen 400, wrong practice, something is missing. Then next is 401 is unauthorized, like you're not authenticated. First, in 400, you are just making mistakes while putting or filling the values. Then next is 401 unauthorized, user not authenticated. After there is a 403 user is authenticated but not allowed. And next is 404 data is not found only. And 500 is internal server error, unexpected server error. And 503 service unavailable, like server is temporarily down. So they are part of HTTP protocol. They help the client understand whether the request was successful, failed due to client error, or failed due to server error. Status codes are categorized into five groups as we have seen: 2xx for success, 4xx for client errors, 5xx for server errors, being the most commonly used in REST APIs, and you will frequently see these only. For example, 200 indicates success, 201 indicate resource creation, 40 indicates a bad request, 401 indicates unauthorized access, 404 resource not found, and 500 indicates server side error, and 500 500 indicates server side error. So 500 will be all be related to server side error. Important interview tip. If interviewer asks you what status code will you return after the successful post? So answer would be the 201. There are only two code for successful. One is 200, second is 201. 200 is for to fetch the data and 201 is for successfully post. For validation failure, 400 bad request. Like for authentication failure, like user is not authenticate only, so there is 401. In 400 there is a bad request, something is missing. In 401 user is failed for the authentication. And for authorization failure, that is 403, forbidden. Authorization failure means you are authenticated user but you are not allowed to access that part of the data or whatever. Then there is a 403, forbidden error. Very important difference between 401 and 403. 401 is unauthorized, 403 is you are authorized but you are not access, you don't have access to that part. So what is REST? Representational state transfer. Basically, it is architecture style for designing network APIs. Everything is treated as a resource. Each resource has a unique URL, uses HTTP methods, get, post, put, delete, usually returns JSON data. You can see REST endpoints like get users 1, post users, delete users 1. Each URL represents a resource. And there are some characteristics of REST API. First, REST API is stateless. Server does not store client state. It just demand the every information at each request, uses HTTP methods properly, get, post, put, delete, multiple endpoints for different resources, fixed response culture. That's it for today. I hope this will be helpful for you guys.